evening, everybody. Welcome to round 8 of our 1986 F1 series, coming to you from Le Castellet in the south of France. I'm Jason White. I'll be your play-by-play announcer this evening. I'd like to wish a happy Memorial Day weekend to those of you joining us from the United States. This is a big weekend in motorsport, not just in terms of, obviously a national holiday is a big thing, but this is a huge weekend in terms of races in real life. We have the Formula One Grand Prix of Monaco, which concluded earlier today, the 107th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, and the NASCAR Coca-Cola 600. So you're spoiled for choice today in terms of motorsports in the real world. We would ask that those of you who are in the chat today, please refrain from posting any Indy 500 spoilers, as several of us have put off watching this race in order to bring you this broadcast today, and we'd like very much to watch the race from start to finish with the mystery of what happens intact. So we thank you in advance for that consideration. Our drivers have just completed the qualifying session. They're in warm-up right now. Let me run down the top 10 for you as the time expired. On the pole for this race will be Grant Riddall with a scintillating time of 106.177. In second place, John Team, just 0.2 behind at 106.370. Then Jules Bouchard, Juha Boss, Gabriel Del Piccolo, Ray Riddall, Tim Hilla, Jonathan Asserclinth, Francisco Almiral, and Gilles Toe in a one-off drive for Ligier this evening. So we've arrived at the midway point of our 1986 F1 Championship, and it's been quite an interesting series thus far. I think we'd all agree about that. Canadian Jules Bouchard leads the championship on the strength of those 4 wins he had in a row. But as other teams are going to be getting improvements to their cars little by little, we can expect the competition at the front to tighten up gradually. And as we look at this chart right here that shows the progress of the top 3 over the last 7 rounds, you can see here how the importance of being consistent is central to pursuing a championship. Bouchard's dominance is plain to see there from rounds 2 through 5, but with the 2 non-scoring rounds in a row, Juha Boss and Ray Riddall are still within shouting distance of the points lead. So that's an interesting graphic there, and you can see the number of wins indicated by gold cups, and second places by silver cups, and bronze by bronze-looking cups. But it shows you how the top 3 have traversed, and really it's just been that straight, or not straight, but solid diagonal line for Jules, but broken in the last 2 races, and it's given a chance for Juha and Ray to catch up a little bit. In any case, let's take a look at the drivers' points as they stand right now. Jules Bouchard, as I mentioned, in the lead with 36 points. Juha Boss in second with 25. Ray Riddall in third with 19. Jonathan Asserclinth is in fourth with 18. And then you have David Saber from McLaren with 16 points. In the constructor standings, John Player Special Team Lotus is in first, well, actually tied for first, with Scuderia Ferrari at 43 points apiece. Marlboro McLaren International is third with 35 points. Fourth is Motor Racing Developments with 16 points. And fifth is Equipe Ligier with 14 points. Equipe Ligier is a lot better of a team than that 14-point tally would indicate. So this is the 1986 iteration of Paul Ricard. It's a track that used to be much longer for the F1 cars, but it was basically cut in half as a reaction to the fatal testing accident of Ilio De Angelis. So you're basically left with a 3.8 kilometer circuit that has a rather awkward bypass between the end of the start-finish straight and the midpoint of the famous 1 mile Mistral straight. which is an area that might cause the drivers some difficulty today. It certainly caused them difficulty in qualifying. You go into turn number 1 and then try to go through this really strange S-bend, which is called S de l'École. I don't know, it's very rare that drivers get that absolutely right. But this is going to be an interesting combination of high speed and cornering, and you might see a lot of cars sliding around as they traverse this track, because you have to set up the wing in such a way that you are not a sitting duck on the Mistral Straight. That in turn gives you a situation where in the slower corners you may slither around quite a bit. So that will be interesting to watch as time goes on. We're going to be going for 80 laps today. And that will be just a little under 305 kilometers. So let's go on the track here and see if we can pick up somebody for a lap. Find somebody who's near the end of their lap. Okay, here's Ray Radal. Oh wait, no, this is Ruben Fernandez. Okay, Ruben heading down into the first turn, which is called La Bretel, and then we head through this very strange section, S de l'École, right turn onto the Mistral Straight, which has been shortened considerably, but still, even with that shortened distance, cars are getting up to 200 miles per hour here before they enter the very fast Singa Bend, which is at about 140 miles per hour. Here goes Ruben, and you can see how he's just trying to hang on there. Goes up onto the curb for a second there. Now into the progressively slower semicircle called Busset. And it gets slower as you go through, and the way you take that really can determine your speed on the lap. And here's the Bendor chicane, which sends you back to the left. And now we're going through a long kind of sweeping right-hander called Village. Sweeping back on the left-hander here, Latour, and then the last corner on the circuit, Pont. All right, let's go for one more lap here with Ruben Fernandez. He accelerates on the pit straight, crosses the line. This terminal velocity here is at about 180 miles per hour as he now downshifts for La Bretel through the very strange, there is a little bit of an elevation change you can see there. Much better exit this time. Now onto the Mistral Straight, and this will take him up to around 200 miles per hour. Of course, the better cars will be cresting 200, maybe 205. Heading into the Singa Bend, trying your best to maintain speed through there. Again, about 140 miles per hour through there, and now through the Busset section where you progressively slow down. Then heading back to the left here after the Bendor chicane, now to the right through Village. Yes, one more time I'd like to remind everybody, please no Indy 500 spoilers in the chat. This is a critical thing because we don't want to have that spoiled for us. We're taking the time to do this broadcast live, and we'd appreciate it if nobody mentions what happens in that race while we're covering this one. Thank you very much. So you can see there the blue runoff areas too, which is another strange part of Paul Ricard. These days they have those strange stripes that are with different grits of oh, and I believe we have someone in the booth with us.
Yeah, good evening.
Oh, it's Alberto. Good evening. Pleasant surprise.
Yeah,
good to see
you
you
for
here.
some seconds, but was waiting for you to stop broadcasting that flying lap so as to explain the circuit. But yeah, here I am.
All right, well, I'll go back to the circuit graphic, and you can tell us about the Paul Ricard circuit.
Well, the Paul Ricard circuit, very much as you already said, is an interesting combination of very long straights and very slow corners. There is a distinct, very long straight, the famous Mistral Straight, and then a very long right turn that needs a lot of downforce to keep the car there without sliding to the exit to the outside, and then that twisty section that is somehow strange when you have such a high-speed circuit. It's a track that is requiring very much a compromising setup, but clearly geared for high speed, because you will be benefiting a lot from high top speeds here, because you will be able to both overtake and defend your position when you are in that main straight. But the problem here is that you will then need downforce in the twisty section, and if you don't have that downforce, you might be actually stressing at the tires a lot. So this is going to be something that is going to be highlighted in the race, because we will be able to see which are the drivers that are best at negotiating that part of the circuit that is so tight, while at the same time keeping the wings low enough to compensate for the need to have top speed and also good fuel use. It's going to be quite interesting in this race, I think.
Yeah, I think we're looking forward to a really good one here. This is going to be a race that taxes people in a number of ways. To hold on to the car, to manage the tires, and to not get rattled by mistakes. Because one nice thing about this circuit is it does have very large runoff areas. So if you do make a mistake, it's not necessarily the end of your race. You'll lose time and you may lose position, but if you can keep the car under control, you can rejoin the race.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that the twisty section is not just twisty, it's also very tight, so it's almost impossible to pass there. And this means that there are two different situations that can develop here in this section and that can affect the race greatly. The first of them is if you're racing for position, if you are probably already heading for the finish line at the end of the race, you're not going to be able to overtake before the start-finish line. It's very rare that you get enough momentum because the start-finish line is so close to the last corner and you're coming out of that very tight last bend. And the second situation is if you got a lap car or even some more lap cars in front of you while you are racing, you might get stuck behind them and lose a huge amount of time. So all the overtaking here has to be done at the end of both straights, not in the tight zone, and that means that you are locked for maybe 1/3 of the circuit behind whatever car that you have in front of you. This can affect greatly the strategies in the pit stops, as we will be seeing probably in the race.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. So, apart from the track itself, what would the main stories be today in this race? Well, for one, Jules Bouchard must score points today and get back on the beam, as it were, to keep his championship bid going. Once again, he was lightning quick in practice on the server, sometimes a full second ahead of his main rivals during the week. But we've seen the results of qualifying, and he's not on the pole. So even though he is still quick, we know there are others who are going to be challenging him today. Ray Rodal, third in points. He's been lapping in the top 5 during the week, and we know that he and his McLaren teammate David Saber, they can casually rise up the ranks during the race, and often become critical factors late in the event. So that may happen. The Brabham team has also shown well in practice. Gabrielle, in particular, doing pretty good, and John Team has also been quick, looking to carry on the momentum from his Detroit Grand Prix win. Tim Hill has also been asserting himself. Benetton's going to be getting some very needed car updates coming up in a bit here. Not today. There's some small ones, but nothing too significant, but definitely coming up soon. And the Ferrari team, led by Juha, is also keen to make a strong impression here in the south of France. One notable absence from this race, Alberto, K.O. McKeels will not be here because he is an actual hardware failure at home that is sidelining him today. One of his pedals broke. So that's...
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because I would have liked to see the progress of the online engine at this part of the season, and it's also quite powerful one. We also have a very notable absence here, which is Richard Coxon. Also,
yes, that's true.
Driving the Benetton, and the engines here that are going to be strong because of the long straights are obviously the BMW, which is, I think, by now nearly the most powerful in the grid, and that's going to benefit a lot the arrow-shaped Brabhams. These are cars that are going to do very well here today, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
But also the Benettons that are on the rise. And while the Renaults have a very powerful engine, the interesting thing about them is that they are mounted on a very wide and different array of chassis, and the fuel consumption is not really on their side. So you get the Lotus that is very agile in the twisted sections, but it also seems to be quite draggy in the main straight. Then you got the Ligiers, who are probably a better compromise in them, and then you got some second-rate, so to speak, teams that also use the Renault engine, like the Tyrrell ones that might be also struggling here.
Yeah, we're looking at one of them on the screen now, Matt Sibignani, who's driving the Tyrrell and has the same has a Renault power plant as well, but probably is going to be struggling here and there to get up the running order, as it were. I watched the final practice session, and it was interesting to see Grant Radal, Gabriel Del Piccolo, and John Team all set fastest times in the 106 bracket, basically eclipsing Jules Bouchard, and he just sat calmly and watched in the garage, I guess waiting for the qualified. When qualifying began, Grant Radal set a time of 106.48, like right out of the gate, and that gave him P1, and Jules cut a lap of 107 dead, which is good for second spot. And then, of course, there was this like game that occurs where people go to the garage and kind of wait and see what happens and how things plan out. And then Grant set a scintillating lap of 106.177. And at that point, he'd used 9 of his 12 allotted laps, so he's pretty much set. Jules was able to return to the track and do a 106.37. But in the end, it really was Grant who was the story in qualifying. Very quick, and managed his time on the track very effectively in order to secure the pole.
Yeah, I think basically what's going on here is that the Brabham is obviously probably the quickest car in the main straight and in the back stretch, and you got 2/3 of the circuit there, and that's where all the time is made up. So the thing that you need to do with that car is not do it wrong, not fail in the twisty section. And when you got a driver with the quality of Grant Ridal and his ability to negotiate the twisty sections, extracting the most of the car, then he can make up for whatever time the car is losing. In the case of Jules, I think it's actually the opposite for the car, in that in the twisty sections the Lotus is probably the quickest, but then he's struggling with the lack of top speed in the main straight. Not absolute lack of top speed, because as we said, Renault is a very powerful engine, but when compared with the huge speeds that the the Brabhams are attaining here.
Yeah, absolutely. Going through the notes that Richard Coxon prepared for me for this race, like he says, as always, any compounder can do full race distance. He expects that mediums are going to be the favored tire going into this race. And are we actually heading to the race session now? It appears we may be. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Pit stops, expect 1 to 2. And fuel could be tight for some, not for others. You may see some drivers engage in lift and coast strategies. This is another thing that Richard has pointed out. Brakes should be like low to medium in terms of their usage.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the cars are now heading onto the grid. Paul Ricard is notable for its big, giant checkered section there for the start and finish. There are a lot of notable absences. I don't think we have a full 26 cars for this race. Maybe a lot of people are just taking today to tune in and watch all the stuff that's on actual TV. Like I said at the top of the broadcast, you really are spoiled for choice today. There's a lot of racing to watch. When I'm done here, I'm going to go to my dad's house to watch the 500 with him from flag to flag, and then I probably will stick around to watch the Coca-Cola 600 too. So, in any case, it's a big day for motorsports in the world. Some call it the best motorsports day of the world, almost like Christmas morning. for racing fans. Okay, so here we go. On the parade lap. On the pole is Grant Riddall in the Motor Racing Developments car. You see him there. In second is John Team for Equipe Ligier. Third, Jules Bouchard, the championship leader, John Player Special Team Lotus. Fourth is Juha Boss for Scuderia Ferrari. Fifth, Gabriel Del Piccolo for Motor Racing Developments. Sixth, Ray Riddall, Marlboro McLaren International. Seventh, Tim Hilla, the first of the Benetton cars, actually the only Benetton we will see today, because as you mentioned, Richard Coxon is not racing today. Eighth is Jonathan Asserclinth for Scuderia Ferrari. Ninth, Francisco Amaral, Cannon Williams Honda team. 10th, Gilles Taux in a one-off drive for Equipe Ligier. 11th is David Saber for Marlboro McLaren International. 12th is Cesarius Slapinski, Team Haas USA. 13th, Anders Nilsson, who finished third, I believe, in our Indianapolis 500 just a week ago in Team Haas USA. 14th, Mark Whitman, Barkley Arrows BMW. 15th, Ruben Fernandez, West Zach Speed Racing. 16th, Dave Miller, Minardi Team. 17th, Giovanni Centorami, driving for AGS in another one-off drive. 18th, Matthew Sibignani, Data General Team Tyrrell. 19th, Gabriel Sturr, Ocella Squadra Course. 20th, Bruno Chacon, Barkley Arrows BMW. 21st, Dario Appa, who's actually going to be starting from the pit lane, Ocella Squadra Course. 22nd, Luciano Rocha, a bit of a surprise, John Player's Special Team Lotus. He might not have had the time to qualify and just showed up within the last few minutes. And rounding out the field in a guest drive is Richard Wilkes in the other Benetton.
He is just last-minute jumping here.
That ought to be interesting to watch. So 23 cars in the grid, and here they come now, very timely, to the start-finish area. Grant is already in his slot. So is John Team. Jules Bouchard, Juha Boss pulls up. It's going to be a very short sprint down to the first corner, and things might get very, very interesting in close quarters when they go through the S de l'École. We'll see how it works out. Cars almost all now filed on the grid. There we are. There is the flash of the names. So stand by for the start of the French Grand Prix. And the race is underway. Excellent getaway by a number of drivers. Looks like a couple of drivers back there having slow getaways, but it's a drag race to the first turn between, oh my goodness, there's contact between Jules Bouchard and Grant Riddall, and it looks like Grant may have some damage. He's acting very strangely there. John Team has gone into the lead. Juha Boss into second place as they traverse the S de l'École. Now onto the Mistral Straight. My goodness, Grant went straight down the order there. Looks like he has damage, and John Team is free and clear heading through the Signa Bend. Second is Juha Boss. Third, Del Piccolo. Del Piccolo. Fourth, Jules Bouchard. Fifth is Ray Riddall. Sixth is Tim Hilla. Seventh, Slapinski. Eighth, or actually now Slapinski's down to eighth, and Asserclinth is seventh. So,
and the field is coming out to the bottleneck.
Yes, big bottleneck at this point right now, but a really disastrous start for Grant Riddall, who's now down to 15th place after that contact. And that was very unfortunate. It looked like it was going to be a drag race down to start. But look at this, Juha Boss right with John Team. It is looking like he's turning up the boost here. He wants to get by into the first turn and lead for Scuderia Ferrari, and he takes the lead. Heading into the first turn, it's Juha Boss in the lead, John Team down to second, Gabriel Del Piccolo up to third, Jules Bouchard is in fourth, Ray Riddall fifth, Tim Hilla in sixth, Johnny Asserclinth in seventh place, eighth is Lipinski, ninth Mark Whitman now, and 10th Anders Nilsson looking from the chopper as they head into the Signa Bend. And look, there is Jules Bouchard attempting to overtake. Oh my goodness, there's contact there between Jules and Del Piccolo, and Jules finally gets by. So a bit of hargy-bargy in these first few laps, as Jonathan might say, Alberto.
Yeah, I don't think that Gabriele was expecting in that so quick corner someone to dive on him. Probably that was the situation. But as relating to the incident that we saw in the first turn, I think that they were all coming very hot into the first corner, and I think that Grant was a bit left undecided there because he had one car at each side, and then Jules made quite an aggressive move there, going for the inside, and he slightly pushed Grant because I think Grant was probably trying to move away from the car on the left, and that was the contact. And when once Grant was on the gravel, on that blue area, he was his car was slowed down dramatically because it's being retained there by the gravel trap. So that's what slowed him down, made him lose a lot of positions because he could not come back to the track easily. I saw him having to let many other cars pass by. It was very unfortunate because he ended in that area and having to go back for the track when the big amount of cars was coming. So that's what actually dropped him so many positions. And I can see that Jules is speeding up now. He has cranked up the boost very clearly and passed everybody as a lightning because he doesn't want Juha Boss to move away so easily. He wants to be there right behind and watch how the race is developing.
Well, Grant Riddall has made somewhat of a recovery. He's up to 10th now. So the race is not completely thrown away for him. We'll see if he can rise back up through the standings. In the meantime, Juha Boss is leading for Ferrari. So the Tifosi, those that have made the trek to La Castellet, will be going berserk as he comes by. Bouchard in second, Del Piccolo third, Team in fourth, and it looks here like we have a challenge for sixth place. Well, we did for a minute, but Assercliff decides to step back behind a hill and wait for a better opportunity. But looks like things have settled down to some extent now. Schlepinski in 8th, 9th Amaral, 10th Grant Riddall. So we have a chance here to see how Grant will perform with these other cars. Now on board with Grant. Question is, how much damage did he sustain there? He's definitely intent on overtaking Amaral, and he does. So now Grant is up to 9th place as they enter the Signa bend. But from your point of view, Alberto, do you think that Grant has any actual damage there? Because he didn't leave.
I'm actually now watching him from cockpit view. I'm waiting for the straight to see if the steering wheel is bent.
Oh, we have another car off the track. It's Del Piccolo. Del Piccolo has run off the circuit. I'm not sure what happened there. And another car's run off the circuit. It is, I think that was Gilles Taux that just ran off. But let's take a look at a replay of what happened to Del Piccolo. He was running 4th at the time. And this is, oh my goodness, contact, it appears, with Bouchard. This goes all the way back to the Signa bend. Bouchard was in front of him. Del Piccolo looks like he was attempting an overtake into Busset, overcooks it a little bit, gets on the marbles, actually touches Bouchard for a second there, but then he goes into the gravel trap. But as we said, there's lots of overrun on this circuit, so you can go back and you're able to get the car back in the circuit. And then Gilles Taux, here's the replay of his incident. He runs wide and goes off into the gravel as well. So it looks like there's not a lot of grip off line here, Alberto, for these cars.
No, and I think this is exactly the situation that, if you remember, we asked Mario Andretti when we interviewed him, and we told him, do you think that the safety that is now being added to the trucks and the cars, and that makes the drivers take more risk? And he said, absolutely. And this is the case here. This is a track that, unlike many others that we have raced this year, has those very big runoffs that you have mentioned. And I think that some drivers here are taking a bit more of unnecessary risks due to that.
Well, it helps when there's no physical risk to you.
Look at Bouchard. He goes for the lead.
Bouchard goes for the lead, and he takes it from Juha Boss. Let's take a replay look at that. As they were coming onto the pit straight, this looks like a boost elevation here. Might be part of it. Yeah, he pulls out alongside of Juha Boss, takes the position very cleanly. Oh, he locks up a little bit, but he gets it. Fairly well done. And now he's trying to pull out a little bit of distance on Juha. So Jules didn't start the race with a pole position like he would have wanted to, but he is now leading the race with Juha in second, Jean Team in third, Ray Radal in fourth, Tim Hill in fifth, Jonathan Asselklint sixth. Grant Radal has made it up to seventh place now. Schlapinski is
Speaking
eighth.
of Grant, to answer the question that you made before, that you posed before, yes, Grant has damage because I can definitely see that his steering wheel is bent when he's in a straight line.
All right, well, that's going to weigh heavily on him. And here we have an excellent battle developing for sixth place, or actually for fifth, between Tim Hilla and Johnny Aces as they head down the pit straightaway. Here's an onboard view from the Ferrari, and it looks like, Jonathan is going to, he locks it up going into Estelle Cole. And he gets it done. Just barely, it looks like he's going to get it done. No, he's actually still alongside of Tim, so it's a drag race. Oh, no, wait. No, Tim is actually ducked in behind the Ferrari, and looks like the position is solidified for the moment, unless he wants to jump out at the last minute. No, he decides to stay there. So Jonathan has now taken fifth place in this Ferrari. That's a very awkward place that Estelle call, Alberto.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Grant is in seventh, and I would expect that even with the damage he has in that car, he may be challenging for a sixth place before we know it. Okay, now interesting. Bouchard is in the lead, but he is not sprinting away from Juha Boss, not by any stretch of the imagination. The gap is only a half a second, and Boss is doing an excellent job of staying in contact with Bouchard as they head into Estelle Cole. And Team is...
Yes, and
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and one thing we are seeing this year when we see their Bouchard racing at the top is that his strategy, what he wants is to drive with an empty track ahead. He doesn't seem to be worried about having someone even close behind, but he really wants to be in absolute control of the race, be the master of what he is doing. So if he feels that he has the pace, he cranks up the boost, he gets in front, and then he controls the race from there. He is not a driver that likes to be hugging right behind someone.
No, absolutely not. It's interesting, this configuration of Paul Ricard has a chicane at Bendor, but you see a lot of other maps where that chicane is omitted, which is odd to me, but in any case it is here, and it's almost a chicane that's inconsequential, but in any case, gap is increasing now a little bit from Bouchard to Boss. It is now 0.7 of a second, a little excessive of 7, but there you can see the top 4 cars right there in the same shot. So we're having a really competitive race so far. No one's running away with it. Bouchard in front, Boss in second after leading for a bit, John Team in third, Ray Radal is in fourth, Jonathan Asselklint in fifth, Tim Hill is sixth, Grant Radal is seventh, Del Piccolo is eighth, Amaral is ninth, and Nilsson is in 10th driving for the Haas F1 team. Now, if we look back here, it looks like Team is going to come under attack from Ray Radal in a second here.
Yeah, and that small gap that you had been noticing between Bouchard and Boss that seems to be increasing, I can confirm that it's the advantage that the Lotus gains in the twisty section. Because I could see right now that at the end of the Mistral straight, Juha is slightly quicker than Bouchard. I mean, not by a lot, but obviously that means that he is not losing any ground there, even if he's probably gaining it. But it's the twisty section that is actually helping the Lotus here.
We're watching from the back view of John Team's car, and you can see Ray Radal there, keeping him honest as they head into the first turn. I mentioned that the McLaren duo usually assert themselves late in the race, but already we've got Ray in fourth place, so don't be surprised if you see a podium finish for McLaren before the day is out.
Yeah, absolutely. We will see towards the end, because if you remember, this is the race where we had that absolutely dramatic finish last year due to fuel issues, where Richard Wilkes, while he was driving in this very same Lotus, was so tight on field that he lost, I think it was like 4 or 5 positions. I mean, he was in the, I don't remember if it was the lead or second, but he dropped absolutely to 5th or 6th or something like that due to the need to coast. Oh, Matthew Ibañez on the gravel.
Yes, we're getting a yellow flag because of that. The front runners are starting to counter the back of the field already. This is a short course, as we mentioned, not at all the longer course that Le Castellet used to be, or Paul Ricard, because of the accident of Ilio De Angelis. They basically cut the track in half. Bouchard crosses the line. The gap is now in excess of a second. He's got several cars in front of him. He's going to have to get by. I was curious to see how much of a risk Jules would take on the start, because as we pointed out at the head of the broadcast, he is basically in the points lead on the strength of 4 wins in a row, and then he had 2 non-scores. So I wondered privately to myself how much risk he was willing to take, knowing that he absolutely has to score points in this race to get his to jumpstart his championship bid again. But he was very aggressive on the start, and I guess that's the way
he was. Yes, he was.
Yeah, yes, I guess that's the way you have to be. We saw that even last week in our. Oh, there's a few cars off the track there. So.
Oh, and look here. I mean, how the lapped cars have hampered Juha Boss unwillingly, but this is what happens here in this twisty section.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so tight. Look at that. Look at Juha Boss, how he is now boxed behind those 2 cars. This is going to give a good advantage. Look at that. I mean.
Well, he might be able to out-drag them down the straight here, so this is actually not that bad of a place to catch them. Yeah, there he goes. He's already clear of them. But it has cost him a little bit of time. You're right. 1.5 seconds is the gap now, but it is not increasing at a huge rate. And we can anticipate both of these drivers heading for the pits, I would think, to change tires at least once to maintain the speed that they need to be competitive in this race. Here comes Jules. There is Juha second. If you look further back, there's Team starting to thread his way through the traffic as well. And Ray Rodal not too far behind him. Jonathan is in 5th. Hilla doing a good job in a 6th position, but he might soon come under attack. Actually, there's Del Piccolo, who's now in 7th after his off-course excursion. He has actually overtaken Grant Rodal, Alberto. So you have...
yeah, correct.
No, you have the...
That's what I was looking at. It's
yeah.
interesting. I don't know when it happened. We probably missed that action, but yeah, I think Grant's car is obviously ill handling, so that's a very unfortunate, but well, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because this is a track where you would have expected the Brabhams to actually be able to score well.
Well, here we are on board with Del Piccolo now, and he is following Tim Hilla, and these are 2 BMW cars, but I think one of them in particular is using more boost right now, and that's Del Piccolo. He takes the inside line away and goes, although here comes Hilla. Whoa, a little bit of contact there, I think, but Hilla stays in 7th place. Del Piccolo advances to 6th, the last points paying position. We're on lap 13 now out of 80. Go ahead.
And you know, this incident, and also at the start, and I'm starting to think that there is a pattern here. Whatever way these guys have set up the Brabhams to be able to make the most of them, of their characteristics, they really struggle in that first corner. I mean, that car has little to no traction when it's coming out of the turns, and it's understeering like mad in those tight hairpins. So I think that what's going also on here is that they have a very radical setup to make the most of the characteristics of the track. They have absolutely given up on the twisted section, at least the part of the chicane, and they are simply going all out for the maximum performance in the straights, knowing that this will allow them to overtake and also defend at the same time. And let's see what happens now between Grant and Tim Hille. Well, this one is probably too short, but I think in the next straight we should be seeing that. And look at that. I mean, Del Piccolo is there locking wheels. Look at Grant Ridal, how he's entering the turns. I mean, and how Tim Hille absolutely ran away and caught up with Del Piccolo. I mean, those Brabhams are really, really ill handling at low speeds.
Yeah, it definitely is the case. I remember I was in Indianapolis for practice and qualifying over the last week, and some of the drivers had to go through their refresher courses or indeed rookie orientation, and they tell you to do X number of laps at like between 205 and 210 miles per hour. And the drivers actually said that that's the hard part of the test, not later when you have to go 225 or 227, because the cars are not aerodynamically set up to go around 200 miles per hour. They're aerodynamically set up to go faster than that. So it feels sketchier when you go slower, which seems antithetical when you think about it. But that's the case here. I think with the Brabham, an excellent point you make is that it's a car that feels much more comfortable when it's going fast. It doesn't feel comfortable when it's going slow.
No, they certainly do seem to have the downforce that they need when they go for the turn after the Mistra straight and into that area. I mean, they have the downforce there, but when they are in the slow sections, that's when you are using chassis and not aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And at that point, they are suffering big time, and that seems to indicate that the chassis has just said, look at Grant Vidal now in this straight.
Yeah, now, there he goes. He pops out and takes the position away. He's back to 7th place. Hilla down to 8th, heading through the Signa bend. But now is where he's going to have to deal with the car's shortcomings, and even more so for him because of the damage he's carrying on that car.
But they are in the bottleneck here. They are in the bottleneck here, and here's where Grant is really able to defend better. Look at that. I mean, he's lit almost to the edge of the track. He's just defending here. And this is the situation. I mean, it's very clear that they went for a radical setup. They are paying for it, and I think that at least a part of the incidents that both Brabhams have been suffering here today are related to the fact that they are absolutely off sync with the rest of the cars in the way, in the speeds that they are entering the corners, exiting them, and what they can do in terms of maneuverability.
Expert analysis from Alberto there. Meanwhile, Johnny Aces is in a very, very solid 5th place, meaning there's nobody in front of him and nobody behind him. But I would be surprised if we see him challenging for a podium place at some point. And here we have John Team, who has got himself a little bit of a cushion between himself and Ray Radal. And the gap between Jules Bouchard and Juha Boss is still about the same. It hasn't changed much. It's 1.6 seconds. So Juha is keeping him in sight. This kind of reminds me of the French Grand Prix in 1973, where Jody Scheckter led for a long, long time in his McLaren. It was a third McLaren that they ran, or I don't know if it was a third one, but in any case, always with him, just behind was Emo, just looking for the right time, and then unfortunately they had it coming together and both went out of the race. But Jules is he's leading the race but not running away with it, and Juha's right there just studying him to see where his best opportunity might be.
Yeah, and we still need to see what happens when they change tires. How many pit stops each of them is going to do.
Absolutely.
And also how the fuel consumption and the reduction in weight is going to affect the cars. So, because as we have said many times already in this broadcast, this is a very, very radical track in that it has very slow zones, very, very fast ones. So the compromise in the setup might easily be thrown away by the, for example, lack of fuel when you don't have that much weight in your car or the different tires or whatever. So let's see.
Well, there has been one update to the Ferrari for the French Grand Prix. A revised front suspension increased the wheelbase, which basically shifted the weight backwards. I don't know if that's helping Juha at all on this circuit, but that is one update. The Ligier for France has a new wastegate, new electronic mapping made available by Renault. So that might account for the performance of John Team this weekend. But he's right there with Jonathan Asserclinth. Actually, no, wait, that's is that Gilles Toe that we're looking at there? I believe it is. Let's see. Oh, no, wait, yeah, this is Juha we're looking at now. So that was Gilles Taux behind him. That's a car that's left. But look at this. Here's John Team right with Ray Riddall. This is most definitely a battle for position now between these two. Ray is up to third, and John Team down to fourth, but he is definitely not falling back. He's looking for an opportunity to get that position back, and there are cars that need to be lapped in front of this group, so that might provide a window for him. As Centorami moves to the left, makes room for both cars. Maybe a little too much room. Centorami running off the track there. But right now you've got third, fourth, and fifth right together on the
Whoops,
circuit.
and Del Piccolo is on the sand again. He seems to have had a spin. And yeah, he's trying to get back to the track. He's on there now. There's Dario, but they're having lots of difficulties with the Osella.
Well,
and there's Del Piccolo again in the racing line, but he's struggling with that radical setup here.
Yeah, it appears he is. John Team in the slipstream of Ray Riddall right now, but doesn't look like he can do much with it at the moment. But things definitely oh my goodness, there's a I believe that's the other.
And Juha is now really close to Jules Bouchard.
Yeah, suddenly it might have been traffic, but the gap is closed considerably. It's now only a quarter of a second, and Juha is looking for an opportunity here to get by and back into the lead again as we ride on board with Juha. Ahead of them is Richard Wilkes, who's not going to make much trouble for them, I'm sure. But you see how close Juha is. He's looking right down the diffuser of Bouchard. Bouchard is counterattacking with boost, obviously, as they head into the first turn, and Wilkes gets out of the way, makes room for both of them. There are now 13 cars left on the leader lap, and we're only on lap 20. And look at Bouchard streak away there. So he's looking to increase that gap back to the way it was. Now already 1 second.
Yeah, the question is how this all will affect his fuel, because I'm pretty sure that he has cranked the boost up here. He was not sure if Juha was going to do the same and overtake him. And knowing Juha, he could very well be playing with Bouchard in that regard. I mean, just using the opportunities he has to get closer but without touching the boost knob, scaring Bouchard and forcing him to use more boost to put a gap in between and be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Looking at making him waste more fuel and then be able to basically give him the death blow at the end of the race.
One other piece of information that's useful here. The Lotus Renault, for the race engine, the horsepower has increased from 904 horsepower to 940 horsepower. So Jules has more power at his disposal than he did last time out. And I'm sure that's a factor here in him keeping ahead of, as we look from the chopper shot here, of Juha Boss. I mentioned there were going to be some updates coming for Benetton later on. The only real update they have at this race is that they're fitted with larger heat exchangers for the oil system. So maybe more efficient the cars are, not necessarily faster, but in any case, that's what's going on with them. Tyrrell and Ligier both also have increases in in terms of power. Tyrrell is now pulling 920 horsepower, and Ligier is doing the same with their Renault engines. So they're about 20 horsepower down on the Lotus team. As they head through
Yeah,
the
we
start
got
finish.
here John Tim suffering a lot with Jonathan Athercliffe behind.
Yeah, Asserclinth really harrying him, making sure he realizes that he's there. Really?
And I'm mentioning this because I think it's pretty obvious the difference between having a Lotus in front or having a Ligier in front for the Ferrari. Because Jules is basically, as we saw, increasing the boost and running away from the Ferrari, whereas John Tim seems incapable of doing that.
Well, he looks like he's defending himself here a little bit, but yeah, you're right. It's the Lotus is obviously the Renault factory team. Heading through Busset now, as things get progressively slower. And you're right, this is where a lot of cars that are set up for high speed do not feel comfy at all. In particular, the Brabham. But look at Jonathan, he's getting much closer here through the twisty bits. He's very, indeed, like when they come to the final corner in the circuit, Pont, he's very close right here, this left-hander. Or right-hander, sorry. Now look at Jonathan, he's making a bid here. It looks like he's using the boost to get by. And he's technically by right, well, he was for a second. And team successfully defends the 4th place, heading down the pit straight. Now on to the Mistral straight. We'll see if that changes in any way, as they are. You can see Ray Riddall just ahead of this group. Now the chopper shot. This is an excellent shot because we can see relative distances very easily. I think Jonathan's taking a breather right now. He's not going to challenge John Team for this position. And for that matter, the gap is increased to the leader back to where it was prior to that skirmish. Bouchard is now in front of Juha by 1.6 seconds, so it's back to where it used to be. Then Ray Riddall in 3rd, Team and Asserclinth 4th and 5th. Grant Riddall is up to 6th place now, benefiting from the untimely off-course excursion of his teammate. And Hilla is in 7th. So don't count Grant.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, but that rubber band effect that we are seeing in the distance between Juha Boss and Jules Bouchard, they come close sometimes due to problems with lapped cars for Bouchard, or maybe some small driving error or whatever. But the interesting thing to notice here is that Bouchard speeds away so as to be more comfortable driving on his own. But at the same time, there is a point when he freezes there and isn't really able to get away from Juha. And that tells me that he's... Oh my goodness, what an accident between Jonathan Athercliffe and John Team. I think that John missed
Goodness,
a gear.
All right, let's have another look at this. Accelerate a little
I
bit
think
here.
he must have missed a shift because Jonathan absolutely hit him.
That must be what happened. Looking on board now, Yes, that must be what happened, because all of a sudden, John Team, the acceleration just went. It's like a parachute opened. Here they are in the straight. Yes, he must have missed a shift. That must be what happened. In any case, John Team goes into the barrier. Actually, Jonathan Asserclinth hasn't lost any wings. So he's probably the lucky one in this group, but poor...
And I can see his steering wheel straight.
John's lap has gone from bad to worse. He just spun in Busset, and he has no front wing, and he's got obvious suspension damage to his car, if not flat tires. Yes, he's got suspension. He's got a right rear flat. He spins again now in the Bendor chicane area. And he's having to wait for other cars to go by so he can rejoin. This is a disaster for John Team and for the Renault effort. Now smoke pouring from his car. Maybe his engine has had it. He's beached the car on the curb there. Man, this is a disaster for John Team.
I think it's the tires are spinning, but I don't think that the engine will be lasting too much.
No,
with this punishment.
This is going to tax the engine something fierce. And now he's trying to get power down, and obviously one tire is flat because he's only able to really... It almost gives you the effect of a half shaft that's broken, because it looks like he's only got power to one tire. But man, this is terrible. He has to basically wait. He's doing the right thing by waiting and letting other people... And he's out of the race. He's decided, forget it, I'm done. But that was really unfortunate. I think you hit the nail on the head. John must have missed a shift on the Mistral straight because he suddenly slowed out of nowhere and caught Asserclinth completely unawares, and there was a collision there. But Johnny Aces, despite that contact, is soldiering on in 4th place and looks like he's okay. Looks like he...
Yeah, I was mentioning before that the steering wheel was completely straight, so it doesn't seem to have been any damage there, which I don't know if the speed difference that was so big that he basically shot like an arrow through the car of John. I don't know what happened there, but Jonathan has been really lucky there.
Yeah. In any case, yeah, he's continuing on in fourth place. Ray Riddall in third, very solid. Okay, now Bouchard is starting to lap more cars. Juha is right with him. The gap is 1.2 seconds, and the car that's being lapped is Schlepinski. He gets out of the way. He doesn't want to be a party to any of this, and he has plenty of room and gives the room to Juha. Good job, Schlepinski. Not being in the way in that situation. But we still haven't reached the pit stop stage yet, which is going to add another layer of complexity to this race. But you can see there the power of Bouchard on the straight. He's just streaking away. And that's certainly, that power increase, I'm sure, is definitely part of the reason why he's able to stay ahead of Juha and keep that gap at a reasonable level, or a comfortable level.
Well, the one that is coming very hot from behind, I think, is Ray Riddall, because I think that the gap has been diminishing and he has been settling now into his rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
He's 4 seconds behind Juha, but he seems to be quite comfortable there. And the Marlboro McLaren, we know that it has the Porsche engine, and towards the end of the race, he could be the one with more fuel at his disposal. So let's see how that pans out later in the race.
Yeah, that's a good point. And he's actually coming up to lap Schlepinski now, so don't let the red there confuse you. He's not challenging a boss yet, but definitely he's in a really good spot right now. Johnny Aces is continuing on. Grant, meanwhile, has benefited from these happenings and is now up to 5th place in his slightly deranged Brabham. So at least I don't know if he's going to be able to contend for the win, but at least he can salvage some points from this. But here we have yet another, looking back now, another start line incident, which had huge implications on this race. It really does seem like it's harem scarum time every time we turn on the green light in this series, but at least lately it does. But in any case, Grant soldiering on in 5th place. 6th is Tim Hilla, so he is now into the points bracket.
And look at Bouchard now boxed there in traffic.
Yeah, oh my goodness, he is.
I mean,
you're right.
Yeah, this is what I told you. I mean, if you are catching up with traffic in this twisty section, it gives you a lot of trouble. And Juha now got closer, not a lot, but closer thanks to that. And look at this. He's right on his tail now.
Right away, it's...
Gabriel Ster did absolutely the right move. Everything worked well. And now even here, coming out of the turn, I don't know if Bouchard was able to accelerate as much as he wanted until the other cars cleared him.
Well, now they've got to get by Luciano Rocha and Francisco Amaral. This is rather...
Lotus teammate, look at that. The Lotus teammate made a move and they are now shutting the door on Juha Boss.
I don't know. He's also... he's going after... I think that's a pass for... that's actually as a position that he's contesting with Amaral. So it was kind of an awkward situation for him, being in competition and having to move over for the leaders. But now we're back to the status quo. Let's have a look at that battle for a minute there. Francisco Amaral running in 10th, and he's got the Lotus of Luciano Rocha right behind him. And it was pretty close for a second there when they were exiting Busset. Rocha, I think, just showed up at the last minute here and didn't post any time in qualifying, that because he started almost dead last. But these two cars look very, I guess the term I would say is very nervous, especially in the twisty bits. They look okay on the long straight, and here it comes. He's got the boost turned way the heck up, closing in on Amaral. And now watch the cars as they go into this the Senia bend and then into Busset. They look very uncomfortable. They slide quite a lot and jerk back and forth a bit. At least that did last lap. But Rocha definitely has Amaral in his sights and is looking for the right opportunity. They're coming up to lap Bruno Chacon. Bruno slows a bit and lets Emerald by. Now the question, he almost closed the door on Rocha there. Thankfully did not. And Rocha's closed quite a bit there to Emerald. And they've got another car on the lead serial about to lap them, and it's Ray Radal. So this has got to be a really challenging thing. Well, we know it is, Alberto, when you have your own private battle going on further down the order, and the leaders are coming through, and you have to make room for them. But at the same time,
this is one of the most awkward situations possible. And you need to be really masterful there to be able to play both games at the same time. I mean, not to lose touch with the one you're fighting with, and also let the leaders by cleanly.
Yeah. It's always a really weird challenge, because if you're being followed by someone closely and you're both letting the leader by, the lead serial car by, you run into a problem where the guy you're competing with might... we have, I think that's Chacon running off the track there. And Ślepiński...
Right, so...
Ślepiński's out of the race for some reason.
Oh.
Not sure why, and it probably took place a while ago, but Ślepiński out. Go ahead.
So Del Piccolo is now coming much closer to Tim Hille. He's really on it for this part of the race. I think that everybody is now close to the pit stops, because I saw in the case of Grant the pit request light flashing already. I'm not sure if he's going for the pits or if he basically knocked it down and said, no, wait, not yet. But it's clear that whatever the situation, the strategy is already pointing to pit stops in any moment.
All right, well, that'll be sauce for the goose, as they say. Riding on board now with Gabriel Del Piccolo, getting closer to Tim Hille by the minute. Two BMW engines, different chassis. Onto the Mistral.
And let's see what happens here.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see if the radical setup for Del Piccolo works here. Oh, look at that. When he puts that gear up, he probably cranks the boost up just that bit at the end of the straight to give him that push. And he has that car very well dialed with that powerful fifth gear that gives him that push when he uses the boost. And that was a very clean pass.
And he got through the area that he doesn't like with no problem. Pretty amazing that Del Piccolo is now in the points again, and he's had two very costly off-course excursions, and yet he's in 6th place. That's pretty amazing.
I think that indicates that whatever these guys have prepared for the race, Grant and him, it was probably a good strategy. It's just that they don't seem to be able to make the car work well enough at the beginning when they are in traffic and fighting it out for the first corner. And the issues they had there in their small fights until the race settled into a rhythm, they have cost them dearly.
Okay, Grant Radal is in 5th, but he's got a whole gaggle of cars in front of him here that he's going to have to overtake. A couple of, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of Acellas and a couple of Barclay Aero's BMWs. Yeah. So we'll see how he does threading through this group, because he's obviously fighting an ill-handling car, regardless of how fast it can go. There he gets alongside, well, almost alongside Bruno. There he goes. And Bruno gives him the room he needs. Now heading into Village, or that was La Tour, and now into Pont. Yeah, now coming up on Mark Whitman, driving the number 18 Barclay Aeros. And look at this, we got an intramural battle going on between the two Acellas, Dario Apa, who almost loses it, and then Gabriel Sturr. They're having their own battle there on the Mistral Straight here. Yeah, it's a Ocella show going on here, but it looks like Grant's going to be able to dispose of them without too much trouble. He's already got one of them. And we'll wait for Busey to take care of the second one. Dario is kind of on the inside here, but he's going to just sweep around the outside, take him. Nicely done by Grant there. That could have been more messy than it turned out.
And some laps ago, I was mentioning that Ray Ridal seemed to be catching up a bit with Juha. That distance has solidified. However, Ray Ridal is now in the middle of a Ferrari sandwich. And
yes,
the way that Jonathan Atherclient is catching up with him is not really, something to be happy about if you're driving the McLaren in front.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a Haas Lola here that he has to overtake. And since Lipinski's out of the race, that would mean it is Nilsson, who is currently running in ninth place. Good placing for that car. Oh, and we have another car off the track that looks to be a Zach Speed that was off the course.
That must be Ruben.
Must be Ruben then. Yeah, because it's the only Zach Speed in the race. Brian Janik is not here today. So that's another absence that we have. But yeah, you're right. Ray is looking really stout in this car and could be a sleeper for later on in the race after the pit stops occur. We'll see what happens. Johnny Aces has also just cleared that Haas entry, and he can see Ray ahead of him. It's a 1.3 second
and
gap.
the top of the race. The top of the race seems to be tightening because Boss is just 0.7 of a second behind Bouchard, which is half the distance it used to be. Ray Vidal is only 3 seconds behind him, and Jonathan is only like 1 point something seconds behind. Grant in the pits. So here goes the first of the pit stops today, as far as I can tell. Let's see what he's using. Let me check if I get to see the tires. That's mediums in the rear.
Okay.
And mediums in the front. That's his tire choice.
All right.
And let's see, because I think they are getting close together at the top, because they are probably sensing that the pit stops are about to happen, and everybody wants to be close enough so as to be able to capitalize on any small error on the pit crews.
That pit stop didn't cost Grant very much. He's only he only dropped down to 7th place, so I'm sure his car's going to feel a lot better on fresh rubber too. It won't fix what's wrong mechanically, but fresh tires.
The thing is, a pit stop on lap 36, as Grant has done, is a bit weird because we're going for 80 laps here. We're not even half distance. You would expect be around 40-41 laps, and it's not 1/3 of the race, so it seems to be an early pit stop, and that could indicate that if his normal strategy would have been half race, he had to pit now because the tires were already shot, which seems to indicate that he is not being able to use the pit strategy that he intended initially, and he will now have a long part of the race ahead of him.
All right, well, don't look now, but Johnny Ace is going to be going for the pits, it looks like, as he disposes of Gilles Taux. But look how close he is with Ray here. He's closed up that gap considerably in the last few laps.
Yeah, and he's signaling pits anyway, so...
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to be going for the pits now.
Not Bouchard, not Boss, not Ridal. But
Jonathan is going in the pits, and hopefully he's got the fixed damage turned off so that he won't have the Ferrari mechanic spit shining the car while everybody goes by. Because I'm sure.
So mediums also for the Ferrari.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jonathan raises the revs in anticipation of being let out, and there he goes. Lights up the tires a bit, and he's still in 4th place here.
Ray Ridal's pit light also flashed for a moment, but he seems to have shut it off.
All right, well, that was a really good stop for Jonathan. He didn't lose any track position. He lost time, obviously. Ray is now coming out of Busey into the Bendor chicane, and looks to be Yeah, he turned off the pit indicator, so he's not anticipating going to the pits right now. And correct me if I'm wrong, you said that one of the aces in the hole for this McLaren is fuel economy, correct?
Yes, it's
right.
his strength.
Okay, well that's good to know, because he probably will be able to go a bit further than other people. We got a yellow flag here. Oh, that's because Tim Hill had just exited the pits in front of Ray. He's in 8th place right now, as Ray downshifts for the first turn. And you can see Juha just ahead. So we now have... Juha's just ahead now. Did Juha... No, Juha couldn't have stopped. But in any case, Ray is closing on Juha, and you can see him just ahead there. Is ahead to scene.
It's none of the podium holders right now have stopped. So
Yep.
I'm curious to see how much they are going to wait. They are now on lap 38, so it's not as if we are mid-race. It seems to be a one-stop race, whatever the case.
Mm-hmm.
That's clear. Even if Grant made that early pit stop, like I said, that's obviously strategy not working for him.
Juha is, as indicated, pit, so he is coming in now, it appears. Yes, here he comes into the pits. Second Ferrari stop, and David Saber is in as well. And, oh my goodness!
Oh!
Whoa! Well, that's going to cost him a little bit of time.
He hit the car, the McLaren, that was waiting there.
Yeah, now hopefully...
He hit David Saber that was there.
Hopefully it didn't cost
So
him
medium
too much
was
time.
also for him.
Mm-hmm.
So Ray Ridal is also signaling pits now. He's on the
Juha.
Mistra straight now.
All right, so both Ferraris have stopped. And it looks like
And the Lotus also, the leader is also signaling pits. Let's see what happens when he comes out of the pits. He probably has been as quick as possible in this lap because obviously you have put the cards on the table for Bouchard to see. When diving into the pits, Bouchard maybe cranked up the boost if he feels that he has some margin with the fuel, so as to try to open the biggest gap possible before heading for the pits. And let's see what happens now.
Oh, and also I can confirm from the YouTube chat that indeed John Team missed a shift, and that was what caused that collision. So we have confirmation now. It's what we thought happened. Okay, Bouchard into the pits now for his probably his lone pit stop, coming to a stop.
Softs tires for
Aha.
him.
Aha. The plot thickens.
Yeah, it keeps explaining what we have said many times. The Lotus is a nimble car that is very agile and has good downforce, so he can use softer tires for that. Ray Ridal now also on the pits. I missed the tires that he's using, but whatever the case, that was been a quick pit stop. Let's see how Bouchard comes out. Where is Juha?
Ray is actually moving very slowly as he exits the pit lane. I'm not sure why.
That's funny because look at that. Juha boss. The distance is huge between both of them. It's incredible. Either Juha had a very bad pit stop or has been caught up in traffic. Whatever the case, he's now falling to the clutches of Jonathan Atherklint. He's closer to Jonathan than to the leader. Now that's something unexpected. Oh, Jonathan must have had a very good pit stop because he's also now ahead of Ray Ridal, who was there before.
All right, so you got both Ferraris running together here. I don't know if there are any team orders at Maranello, but this definitely does add some spice to the race. Yeah, definitely Bouchard came out on the winning end of those pit stops because he is 6.5 seconds ahead of this duo. As someone heading into pits there, that's Nilsson. So now we got the second half of the race in front of us here after everyone's pitted, and it'll be interesting to see how this Ferrari battle plays out. Actually, the gap now has dropped significantly between Boss and Bouchard. It's now, the gap is now 4 seconds. You can see the twin Ferraris there, and there's Bouchard in the front of the shot. And here comes Juha and Jonathan.
Well, it could very well be that Bouchard is starting to feel anxiety due to the fuel use. I mean, if you are half race, as we are now, then you should also have half tank. So if you don't have that, well, I know the car is lighter, but still, I mean, it's somehow an indication that you are not on your target.
Richard Coxon in the chat brings up an interesting point that we may have glossed over, the time that Juha lost with that altercation with Saber may have led to. But
there
look
was
at this.
some, but I
look,
don't think it was that much. But in a way,
well, hang on, hold the
I
phone
mean,
because
for sure, not 4 seconds.
it's down to 2.7 seconds now. The gap between Bouchard and Boss is dropping like a stone. I'm not sure what it is, but well, here's you can see it now. Here's the second Lotus in your shot. There is the leader, Bouchard, and then here come the Ferrari duo. And the gap's back up to 3, so it may be just traffic.
It could be.
But Jonathan's staying right with his teammate here. Interesting team battle here. Oh goodness, Chacon appeared all of a sudden there. I was watching from the back view of Juha's car, and suddenly out of nowhere there was Chacon, but he got out of the way very easily. Yeah, the gap is now back up to about 4 seconds, so there's probably just a traffic situation with, Jonathan clips the dirt there just very briefly.
Whatever the case, again, let's wait and see what happens towards the end of the race, because I can only remember how Wicks suffered a lot with the Lotus here in this very same track, so it would surprise me very much if there is not some tight fuel situation towards the end of the race for certain drivers. Question is what Jonathan is going to do now.
Yeah.
He will be happy to follow Juha, or he will be trying to move if he... This is one of those complicated situations, you know. Fernando is faster than you. I mean, if you got your teammate right in front of you and you really have more rhythm, you are quicker, what can you do? I mean,
well, we'll see. Don't forget that this is just round 8 of this series, and coming up on June 11th will be the next round in the 1986 F1 Series, and that will be the Shell Oil's British Grand Prix, round 9 of 16, Sunday, June 11th, race start 2000 CEST. And look at how close they are. They're still very close together here. In fact, Jonathan almost ran into the back of Juha and Buse there. And had to run into the gray stuff for a second. He was lucky to save the car. Now they're coming up on Luciano Rocha, who is teammate to the leader, but he's pulling to the side immediately. He doesn't want to get in the way of what's going on here. Slows up just enough for Jonathan to get by. Very well done. Lockups from both Ferraris going into Estelle Hall. You can see there the gap for yourself between the leader and second and third, Boss and Asherclinth. And Ray Radal, you can see further back there, 7 seconds adrift. Grant is 5th now, with Del Piccolo 6th.
Well, one thing we can say, the pit stop so far has been a complete game changer. I mean, they were all grouped together, and it seemed that both Ridal and Juhabos were having some good opportunities to move upwards. And then, after these pit stops, the situation is like radically different. Like Bouchard very well settled in the lead, Juha hunted by his teammate, and Ridal quite some ways behind. But well, still a very long race.
Oh, I also remember now, I didn't give the trivia question. We'll give the actual question now, and you can ponder it until the end of the race. Trivia question. Ferrari has won the French Grand Prix a record 17 times. Which constructor is second to them with 8 wins? Is it A, Williams, B, Mercedes, or C, McLaren? We'll have the answer later on for you at the end of the race. And meanwhile, the two red cars very close together still. Coming up now to lap Ruben Fernandez. Looking to see if there are any interesting skirmishes further down the order. It looks like people are pretty spread out. Well, Giovanni Centorami is starting to... looks like he might be closing on Dave Miller, who is in a... who's running in a Minardi, I believe. Yes. Heading through Busset now. Miller has to lap a... it's Gabriel Stur in one of the Ocellas. So Centorami will be looking for a chance to advance his position here. Centorami is having an excellent run in the 1980 Pro Car Series. He's in the top 5 in that championship. There's one more round of that to go, I believe, at Avis, which ought to prove to be a interesting race, as he is now being given a blue flag. And I believe, yes, the leader of the race, Jules Bouchard, is about to overtake Centorami. And with that overtake, actually, I think he's already, he may already be one lap down, but in any case, here comes the leader, Bouchard. Yep.
Yeah, being lapped is a bitter blessing. It's a bitter blessing for the slower cars because
they don't have to go as far.
On one hand, they obviously... Yeah, they obviously show they lack of speed, but they can also use more fuel, and the tires are not taking that much beating. But yeah, I mean, we should probably, this is a good moment to mention and highlight the great gentlemen and sportive drivers that we have here, like Dave Miller or Giovanni himself, driving these obscure cars that are so much out of the spotlight, and yet there they are, soldering on, having fun, fighting with the guy on the next garage. And I think it's very important to say how meritory it is for these guys to keep coming here and feel the grids and have some fun. And not everything is winning.
Well, Centorami just did a loop in Pont, and he's waiting for the right time to re-enter the circuit. But you're absolutely right. There are, there are a lot of cars in this mod that, I mean, we don't do league mods as they were, where all the cars have the same exact physics. These cars are saddled with physics that are designed to make them behave the way they behaved historically, which means that the chances of winning a race in an AGS are next to 0. But we have enthusiastic members that take up the challenge. I mean, like with the Indianapolis 500 that we ran just recently, and for the qualifying for that, one of the challenges, I believe it was Dave Miller, the challenge was to get the blowtorch onto the grid, and he wasn't even running the race. He was just interested in the challenge of doing that, and he got it done. Giovanni Centorami running 17th here in this AGS. Not going to probably score any points, but he's doing a good job keeping the car on the island, and may yet challenge Dave Miller there for 16th. We'll see. Yeah, here's Miller. Miller actually now 15th. So I think Appa might have made a stop there or something, but you see how he's now mixed in with all the leaders.
So Jonathan in the lead now.
Yeah, Jonathan's. How did that happen? Oh goodness, we have to go back and look.
Yeah, we missed it.
Good grief. Okay. So I'm gonna run it back.
You have us hunting down Bouchard now. That's interesting. Must have been traffic, or I was looking at the timetables and suddenly I see Jonathan in the top, and it's like, whoa.
Well, it appears. Okay, here we are. We have a partial answer here. Okay. Jonathan. Okay, Bouchard made a mistake. That's what happened. And it was with traffic. All right, so here we go. It's on your screen now. Heading through. This was heading through the village section up to La Tour, and he's got two arrows in front of him. He goes to the right-hand side to overtake one of them, and Chacon makes a bit of a mistake and runs wide, locks up tires and goes to the right, contacts Bouchard just slightly, and it's enough to get him off into the gravel, and there goes Jonathan past. So he also, somewhere along the line, Jonathan got past Juha. In any case, Bouchard is now down to second place, and Jonathan is leading the French Grand Prix. So that's how it happened. It was an altercation with back markers. Totally, not no one's fault. Just, an odd situation where Chacon moved to the right because he locked up his tires. Bouchard not anticipating that, and it just put him offline long enough for Jonathan to take the lead.
Yeah, well, nobody's fault, but Bouchard showed here his anxiety a bit because, they're in the tight part of the circuit with two arrows side by side, trying to go there for the overtake. Okay, he could be expecting them to let him lap and open a gap and all that, and fair play to that. But I would not have gone for that move, for sure. Knowing especially that those two arrows will be there right for the guys who were following him, so it's not as if he would be losing much time there.
All right, so interesting.
Whatever the case, I don't think it was a good call from Bouchard here.
Well, in any case, looks like Boss is slipping backwards into the clutches of Ray Radal, so we'll have another battle coming up in a minute here between these two. Jonathan definitely giving it everything he has. He got in the dirt there for a second there, but there you see the top four in your shot. Jonathan leading. Bouchard, after his off-course excursion, is in second place. And look at this battle here between Juha Boss and Ray Radal shaping up. This looks really good.
I can tell you anyway that Jonathan was already making quicker laps than Bouchard before this incident, so Bouchard is going to have to use a lot of fuel if he wants to catch up with Jonathan, even if he was in front before, but that's not really the true picture of this.
Well, the YouTube chat was making
the
about
shame,
the same,
though, in terms of... Yeah.
Go ahead,
yeah.
Sorry.
So the other thing that one could... the other conclusion that one could take out from this is that, unfortunately, and as much as I would like to see Jonathan win races, this is probably not the Ferrari that should be in front in terms of championship interest, because Juha Boss is obviously the one with more points, and he's more in a better position, so to speak. But it's early days, so we will see how it goes.
And here comes sweeping around to take third place, Ray Radal from Juha Boss, just there as they entered the Signa bend. So I'm starting to wonder if something might be wrong with Juha's car.
Could be. Maybe he's not being able to make the tires work?
I don't know. But
It doesn't seem to be damaged. I didn't see him having any kind of contact with anybody.
well, Ray made that look very, very easy going into that corner. He just swept by with no problem whatsoever. He may have had some boost help, but it was quite he was quite assertive. And you are trying to maintain the gap with him here. Starting lap 55 now out of 80. And Bouchard in front of them. And Jonathan is now leading to the tune of 3.765 seconds over Bouchard. There is the chopper shot of Jonathan entering Signa Bend. Then we go back to Jules, about 4 seconds back, and then Ray Riddall. So the front four are all very close in competition. All it's going to take really is like a miscue from somebody or an off-course excursion for that order to change. We've seen how quickly it can happen.
Yeah, indeed, that's the case. And that's also the main reason why these guys are playing their cards as they are. I mean, using the boost and always trying to, if they get behind, to crank it up and get closer to the car in front and all that, because they know there is a big handicap for all of them, which is fuel. They need to play with that. So it's like you're walking there a thin line. You need to be close to the car in front, but you need to save enough fuel. And they are using all that they can, all the margin that they have, just to stay in touch with the other car, precisely because of what happened to Bouchard, so as to make the most out of any opportunity that presents itself.
Yeah.
Oh, Grant and Gabriele are running now very close together, both Brabhams.
Yep, there they are.
1 second difference between them. They are 20 seconds away from the head of the race, but it's really a shame that both of them had incidents, because the race pace that they are having, I can tell you, is good. I mean, it's decent enough. The 20-odd something seconds that we are seeing between them and the head of the race is just what they left in the incidents that they suffered.
Yeah, you can lay it right at the feet of those incidents as they both get by Luciano Rocha. Oh my goodness, Grant has a very squirrely moment as he exits Busset now into the Bendor chicane. He's still, you gotta remember, he's still fighting an ill-handling car there. That stems all the way from a first lap incident. Actually, before they even got to the first corner, there was an incident involving him and Jules Bouchard. Looks like Del Piccolo asserting himself a little bit here, trying to get some space between himself and his teammate. Juha falling a bit behind of Ray Riddall here, but Ray is getting closer to Bouchard now. And this is very critical because we've got
it's really close now. I mean, the gap has diminished a lot.
Yeah, and looking back at the points really quickly, it's important to remember that these are all the top four that we have here in the race. Asserklint, Bouchard, Ray Riddall, and Boss, they are the top four in the standings. So this has very, very critical championship implications, this top four, the way they finish.
Well, one thing I can tell you, I'm looking right now at Bouchard from the cockpit, and he certainly is not shy of using RPMs in his car. I don't know how much boost he's using, but he paid for all the tachometer and he got to use it.
Well, we mentioned earlier that the Lotus has an increase in power from its Renault engine.
Oh, Anders Nilsson's engine has blown.
Oh, no. Well,
second engine to blow here today.
Maybe not.
That's a factor we had forgotten about.
Yeah, maybe not the last one. thing race. Holding back a little bit here, just making sure the he's closing. Well, he's in decent. But look, Yuha is just about the same amount of space behind him, so it's hard to think about the prey that you have in front of you when you got someone else right behind you that wants to pass you. So Jonathan's in an excellent spot right here. He leads this group by about 4 seconds, and they've got their own battles going on back there. And if they start battling with each other, that'll just play right into Jonathan's hands late in the race here. We almost are to the point where we almost have about 20 laps to go. As Jonathan laps one of the Barclay Arrows cars, now heads through the village right-hand bend that leads to La Tour. Jonathan really, again, you got to remember, is very lucky to even be where he is, considering the altercation that he had with John Team earlier. So, if I were Jonathan, I'd play the Mega Millions tonight. just an idea.
Good advice.
Yeah, but Jonathan looks very calm and collected and cool. Very much like you would expect a Swede in one of these cars. I forget what event it was, but it was an event recently where Stefan Johansson was reunited with his Ferrari from this era. And got to do some laps in it, which must have been really sweet. Can't remember the event. But he's driving a very controlled race. Ray is now in second place. He's gotten by Bouchard. So we need to see what happened here. Did Bouchard have another off-course excursion? Or was it simply... No, actually, this looks like pure horsepower. Yeah, Ray simply motored on by on the Mistral straight. Yeah, there he goes. Clear by is Ray. And into second place. It was that simple. Just motored by on the Mistral straight at the end, passed at the end of the straight.
And given the lack of resistance that Bouchard posed, and let's see what happens here in this straight. But given that, I would gather that Bouchard is starting to be worried about fuel. Look at that. I mean, he didn't crank up the boost to recover the position.
Yeah, he's not trying to get it back. So now his main concern.
That's telling us the story.
So really his main concern now is maintaining a podium finish and saving off a Juha Boss, who I would expect to be closing on him relatively soon.
I expect Juha to have better fuel mileage here than Bouchard, and he's indeed getting closer.
But overall, very few DNFs in this race. We only have Nilsson and I believe Sibignani retired earlier due to handling. He just didn't have a car that was handling properly for this circuit.
Yes, and it's all a matter of the safety of the track that you already highlighted. And the very big runoffs and all that. So we don't see many cases of retirements here due to damage in the suspension. Actually only one, which is John Tim in the Ligier, and we know that wasn't because he crashed against the barrier.
Yeah.
Just so
yeah, must be really nice to come to this circuit after having been at Detroit, where you have zero margin for error at all. As Jules makes his way past Santorami through the Bendor chicane, but I would say that he's got to be worried. Fuel economy definitely is going to play a role here, and you can see that even now Juha is starting to close quite significantly on Jules Bouchard, so we could see a battle for third place here shape up in the next few laps. if not sooner. He's definitely closing. You can see it. Yellow flag ahead here. Not sure what's going on. Somebody off the course. I can't see quite who it is. I don't see anybody, but there was a yellow flag for a minute there. No problem now.
And I can see they are in the Mistral Straight, and Juha isn't even bothering cranking out the boost. I think he has realized by now what's going on for Bouchard. And he is basically playing the waiting game. No hurry for him. He wants to be himself sure that he controls the whole situation. And he knows that sooner than later Bouchard will fall in his clutches.
Oh, Luciano Rocha out of the race. So we're down to one Lotus now. And Juha is definitely harrying Jules Bouchard now. No question about it. Tucked right underneath his diffuser. Well, not that close, but close enough that he may be able to overtake Jules very shortly here.
And I can see the arrows battle is ongoing. Mark Wittmann and Bruno Chacon are still fighting out there in the, this time in the slow part of the track. It's fun to see.
Well, let's have a look at that.
Going too wide into the corners.
Yeah, you're right. It's a arrows battle going on here between Chacon and Whitman. All right, let's stay with this for just a second. See what. Now watch. We'll stick with this, and then the lead will change on us. And you've got Gilles Taux in there. I don't think that's. I don't know. That's not for position. He's putting a lap on them, but as they come down the straight here, yeah, this is a bit of a fun battle to watch here between the Barclay Arrows cars, which really are not at the pointy end of the field in terms of competitiveness. But look at
that. I mean, they've been spending several laps already doing this constantly with each other. This is reminding me Randy Mamola when he was driving for Kajiba. He was riding for Kajiba, and the races were boring because he could not be at the top end or anything like that. So he was making wheelies and burns out during the races and all that.
Yes. Look at this. They overtook each other about 2 or 3 times in the same shot. Now again, now there's contact. Don't do that, guys. Let's keep it fun and but keep it clean.
So they are giving the spectacle here for everybody. Oh, look at that. I mean, it's like Formula Ford.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Whitman closed in really close there, almost ran into the back of Chacon. These guys are definitely going at it.
Okay, so now Juha is closer than ever to Bouchard. There is traffic and they are in the tight part of the circuit. Let's see what happens here. Oh, is Juha really trying it there? He's putting pressure on Bouchard, but if I was Juha, I would not do that, because Bouchard is already busy enough and angry probably enough with the fuel consumption to put pressure on him. Okay, they are right behind Wicks now. I mean, if you are so close, any error and you could very easily get damage from the car in front, and what's the point then?
Interesting observation from Coxon in the chat. He says that the softs might be causing Bouchard trouble, especially when you consider the fact that the track temperature has gone up.
Could also be. Check one thing. Let's wait until they work a bit more.
Johnny Aces is still the leader. Ray Radal in second place. And this is the battle you're watching right now for third between Jules Bouchard and Juha Boss. Del Piccolo in fifth, Grant Radal in sixth. So it's not a complete, it's not a disaster completely for the Brabham team. And David Saber lurking there in seventh, just in case something goes wrong with the top 6.
Well, I can tell you, I think that Bouchard is short shifting it compared with what I saw before, and I don't see that he is like sliding a lot and you know doing many tire skids and all that, which would be what you should be seeing if the problem was the tires.
All right,
I
here's
mean, I think that he's short shifting it.
well, he's right with him now. Has been since the Senior bend on this lap. They have Dave Miller to let. Oh,
I think that Juha's getting too impatient here, really,
Yeah.
because the situation can only go worse for Bouchard. So I don't think it's a good idea to be. It could also be that Juha, what he really wants, he knows that Bouchard is his prey, but he's already thinking on the next car in front. He probably thinks he doesn't want to miss the train of catching up with Brad Riddle, and probably Bouchard is hampering him on that regard.
we haven't talked enough about Ray Riddle today, or we've mentioned him here and there, but gotta say, really excellent drive by him. Another one of these come from behind, very steady, measured races where he lets the race come to him. Smooth, clean, no histrionics. That's what you come to expect from this guy.
Yep. Did we mention that Gilles Stowe did not finish?
No, we did not, but that's too bad because he was actually looking relatively good. He qualified 10th. So he had a good qualifying session, but for whatever reason, he is now out of the race, promoting Dario Epa to 12th and Miller to 11th. And Francisco Amaral is still running in 9th place, Tim Hill at 8th. And Wilkes, who started dead last, is up to 10th for his trouble. So, and this is interesting. Remember the Arrows battle that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
And they're now glancing off of each other, their tires. Here comes Ray. He has to get into the middle of this fight. Well, actually, he managed to sail by, but they were going at it tooth and nail, and he just happened to catch them at a point where they had touched wheels and slowed down a lot, and he was able to sail by. But that could have gone very bad. I want to go back and look at this battle some more because it's rather entertaining.
Well, we get to see it now while we are following the leaders. There goes Bouchard, there goes Boss.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to miss. We are past Bruno, past
Past
Pittman
both
now,
of them
who
now.
does it very well.
And then here comes Chacon thinking, I want to get by. I want to take advantage of this. He's on the outside now, but Whitman probably counterattacking with boost there. Yep, it's the Arrows Barkley BMW show. These guys.
There he goes. That's Bruno again in front.
They're having fun. They're having a lot of fun. Watch, now Mark's going to pop out again. They're getting their money's worth out of these cars.
They do.
And these are BMW-powered cars also. Oh, Del Piccolo has DNF'd. Not sure what happened there. Let's see if we can get a replay. All right, here it is. He just stopped on the course. Apparently, this is a engine letting go. I don't know. Yes, it is. I can see the flame. Yes, this is an engine failure for Gabriel Del Piccolo. So he is out of the race, unfortunately. And there goes his teammate by. Too bad. And one of the, I believe that was one of the, it wasn't, Gilles Taux was already out of the race, so it's the other, the other Osella is out of the race.
Ah, okay.
Gabriel
No,
Stur.
that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Gilles Taux was driving the Ligier in a guest drive.
That's right. My apologies. It was Gabriel Stur who went out of the race there. Dario Epa is still running. All right, so we now have 10 laps to go in the French Grand Prix. And look at that. David Saber has risen into 6th place as a result of Del Piccolo's DNF. He is behind Grant Riddall. Not behind him literally, but behind him in the scoring. And he's about to be lapped by the leader, Jonathan Asserclint.
So Bouchard seems to be speeding up now a bit, probably not willing to make things easy for Juha Boss.
Yeah.
He was not feeling comfortable with so much pressure.
He's got a second win now, it looks like.
Let's see the field towards the end. I mean, I was thinking that he was short shifting, that could be the case, but it's true that Juha is catching up on him in the twisty section, so Coxon might have a point regarding the tire temperatures. But you never know. I mean, he seems to be able to accelerate out of the corners quite well compared to Juha. Now he's keeping him a distance here in the twisty section, so I don't know. Whatever the case, it's for sure, and we know it from the previous time we ran this series, that the Lotus is going to suffer towards the end of the race in terms of fuel consumption.
So Wilkes is now up to 9th as Del Piccolo drops further down the order, and eventually Miller will be 10th. And that means Dario will eventually be 11th. So good showing for him in the Osella. Hopefully it'll stay in one piece before the checkered flag falls. Giovanni Centorami in 13th, eventually will be 12th. And Ruben is keeping going in the Zach speed. Looks like the battle between the arrows has broken off for a bit, with Whitman in 16th place and Bruno in 15th. Well, it's still relatively close. Yeah, here comes Whitman again. He's not willing to let Bruno get too far away. Oh my goodness! He lunges at the outside. And he gets by, but runs wide. Side by side, once again, are the two arrows heading into lap 67.
I hope that in the heat of this battle they are not forgetting to keep an eye on the fuel gauge, because it would be truly comical to see them run off of fuel at the same time.
Oh,
Whitman does a spin.
Oh, goodness.
Well, I could settle it.
Man.
Unless Bruno maybe was having so much fun that decides to wait.
Maybe. He's got a good distance now on Whitman. So, unless Bruno makes a huge error or needs to let a lead serial car by, I don't know. In any case, Tim Hilla is spinning at the last corner in the circuit, but he keeps it rolling and looks like he's going to not have too much trouble from that. So,
yeah, he's usually fortunate with that. He doesn't usually suffer too much on those spins. he knows how and where to spin.
Actually, the spin started before he even got to the last corner. It got into a bit of a lazy slide, and he didn't even leave the racing surface. He does there just a little bit, but yeah, he got it rolling again pretty easily. Matthew Sibignani says he feels a teammate collision coming. Matthew, they've already contacted each other about 10 or 12 times. We've just caught several of them on TV here. But
yeah, the only reason you don't see how they traded paint is because both cars are painted the same way.
That's true. Oh, man. When they get back to the garage with those two cars, the team's going to be like, what did you do?
That's my Arrows logo.
Look at all the work we have to do now, thanks to you.
Oh, Dario Appa's engine just blows royally at the end of the straight while Juha was lapping him.
Well, that's really too bad because Dario was doing really well in a.
Oh, Bouchard. He made an error, too much throttle coming out of the slow turn, and Juha was able to sell by.
All right, here's the replay. Too much throttle in this very, very strange area. Yes, there it is. He runs wide. Thankfully, he doesn't hit anything. But yeah, that opened the door for Juha, and he said, "Thank you very much. I'll take that." And goes right up into third place. Well, that solved that situation. Yeah, I think Richard Coxon's speculation about the tires may be true. May not have been the right choice. Yes, Sibignani points out that the team principal of Arrows will have a couple of words for his drivers after this race. Probably.
Yeah, they're back together now.
Oh, they are. Yes, they are. They're right back together again. The battle that will not end. As Bruno's in 15th and 16th is Whitman, and Whitman was right up the diffuser of Chacon's car. He's looking for a way to get by on the outside, which I suppose could work if you timed it properly, but no, he's staying behind as they enter lap number 6. This is lap 70 for them.
I can see Bruno requesting a transfer to Osella soon because these races are going to be too stressful for him. Oh, Bouchard wanting to recover his position here. Giving there a hard time to Juha.
Yeah, interesting. So maybe he has a little bit left in the tank. Yep, here he comes up the inside and takes the position back, at least for them. Well, wait a minute. No, Juha fights back on the outside and maintains the position. Interesting.
Now as Mr. Straighten here, if Bouchard wants, he can crank up the boost.
There's David Saber on the inside being lapped by this group. So
here comes Bouchard.
Yep, there he goes. Right by into the Signa bend. Very clean. So Bouchard has not thrown in the towel yet. That's interesting. The gap between well, there's yellow. More trouble from Chacon has gone off the circuit. Right in front of this group, and there's Whitman actually slowing down. I don't know what's going on with Whitman, but he's slowing down and letting. Do you think he actually slowed down to get them back together again?
It wouldn't surprise me,
Because
but who knows?
at first it looked like one of them was retiring. Yeah, that's what he did. That's exactly what he did. He slowed down to let Bruno catch up. Or I can't tell who's where at this point, but one of them slowed down to let the other one catch up.
Well, the team principal orders were then to keep up sucking TV time.
They're like, yeah, look, there they are. They're back together again. And here's Yuha now with the unfortunate task of having to find a way by these two. He's now sandwiched between them, and he finds a way. Oh, no! Don't turn down on him. There we go. Okay, he's by. But apparently the
arrow sponsor must be happy, even if the logo is barely readable.
USF&G and Barclay are getting theirs. This is fun. I gotta admit, this is a lot of fun. Drag racing down the straight once again are the two arrows. Whitman back in front again. But here comes Sabre, who's going to be lapping this group. Whitman now looking for a way back by Chacon.
Oh no!
Oh!
Whitman's engine has blown.
Oh, dang. There goes the most fun battle on the circuit. And it looks as if smoke is coming.
Wait, there is another engine exploding.
Yeah, that is Tim Hilla, it appears. It appears his engine is also...
Oh, and Ray Ridal's engine also dying.
Yeah. There's smoke coming out the back of the... Ray Ridal is out of the race as well.
Yeah, engine exploded too. Damn it. This might actually put Grant back in the podium.
My goodness. Yeah, there's Ray coming to a stop. And Yuha sprinting by.
So the race is over with Jonathan winning, and it's Boss Bouchard second and Boss third.
We're on. Is this the final lap or is the race over?
It is.
Oh my goodness! See, we were so caught up in the silliness going on at the back that we missed Jonathan crossing the line. But Jonathan Asserclinth, Forza Italia wins the French Grand Prix. Jules Bouchard's going to be second. Third, already with the car torn to pieces because of the silliness, is Yuha. Fourth is Grant Ridal. Fifth is Ray Ridal.
Yeah, engine blown, which is a shame because he was a solid third.
In the end, Grant does pick up a few points, but obviously not the race that he was looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My goodness. Ray is actually going to finish fifth, despite the fact that the engine blew. David Sabre, his teammate, is coming around now, and he's finishing in sixth. So, not a bad day for the McLaren team, and fourth place for Grant. So it wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be for the Brabham team after turn one, lap one, as Sabre motors in. Tim Hill is seventh, eighth for Amaral, ninth for Richard Wilkes, and he came from last on the grid, by the way. 10th for Dave Miller, so top 10 for Minardi. You can't say that too often. 11th for Centorami, 12th Ruben Fernandez, 13th Bruno Chacon. He is the one who outlasted the Barclay battle. 14th is Mark Whitman, having just retired. 15th Dario Apa, 16th Gabriel Del Piccolo, 17th Gabriel Sturr, 18th Joel Toe, 19th Luciano Rocha, 20th Anders Nilsson, 21st Cesarius Lipinski, 22nd John Team, 23rd Matthew Sibignani, and that was the final running order for the race. But what an entertaining race that was on multiple levels. Pretty exciting, and I believe we do have the winner of the French Grand Prix in the booth. Jonathan, congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy with that.
You should be. So after the pit stops there, both Ferraris were together. We were thinking that you were lapping faster than Juha at the time. Was that correct assessment, or?
Well, it looked like after like lap 30, 35, I felt like I was catching the guys in front. And after the pit stops, that sort of felt the same. And I was sitting there behind Juha, giving him a chance. He was a little bit low on fuel, I believe. So I was just giving him a chance to see if he could catch Jules. But when we were going through the backfield part of the circuit, I was like, "Oh, this is going slow. This is going slow. This is slow. This is slow." And a few laps in, I said, "Well, if you like me to, I can try to catch him and forcing me into a mistake." Juha agreed, and I'm very thankful to Juha for both that and for providing me with a base setup to work with. And I think me catching up to Jules then forced him to make a tiny mistake in runoff.
Well, let's hear Juha's side of the story as he's in the booth as well. You ended up catching up one place there towards the end because of an engine failure of Ray, I believe. But how was your race, Juha?
Oh, I had a really good race. I probably used a bit more fuel than Jonathan in the beginning because we were obviously in the same channel on Discord, and I knew he had more fuel spare than I. So I thought, if I let you through, you can put up a challenge. You've got more in the bag than me. You're right behind me. You've got the pace, so go for it. So I kept him in check on the fuel, and I'd rather see him at least finish ahead of the Lotus than me trying to catch it in vain with Jonathan behind me. So, and Jules made an error which allowed me through again, but I think he had a bit more fuel left than I did. And I was gifted another place when Ray blew up. So not entirely deserved, but there we go, 2 Ferraris on the podium. At a track neither was expected to do well. So,
well, I apologize to Jonathan. We missed you crossing the line to take the win, or we got it just at the very last second because there was all kinds of craziness going on with the Arrows Barkley team, which actually was proving it was proving to be exceedingly interesting. But fantastic drive from both of you. It definitely adds spice to the championship standings. No question about that. We'll have that, of course, figured out later. Any questions for Jonathan or Juha, Alberto?
Well, how did you guys do with the fuel? Did you really have enough, or was it really tight at the end?
Well, for me, it was a case of I knew what pace I could go at, and I was constantly checking, and I think I had 3 or 4 liters to spare as across the finish line. So for me, it was never major danger as such, I wouldn't say.
So how much fuel for lap were you using?
I think I averaged roughly 2.39 or something like that.
Okay, just to put that into perspective, you had indeed nearly 2 laps more. Mm-hmm. All right. And how was it for Juha?
I was short on fuel by half a liter, so I had to back off a bit more than I intended. Okay. I don't know why. Maybe John's better at fuel saving than I am. Each lap, each time we compared, I noticed he was a lot more spare. So
that could also be a case of him having more clean air after he gained the lead.
Could be, yes, because I didn't spend that much time in the lead.
All right. Well, since we got everybody here in the booth, we may as well do the trivia question. We looked at it earlier. Trivia question is, Ferrari has won the French Grand Prix in real life, not counting this race, a record 17 times. Which constructor is second to them with 8 wins? Is it A, Williams, B, Mercedes, or is it C, McLaren?
I think I'm going to guess A.
I'll guess McLaren.
I'll say McLaren too.
Time's up. So Jonathan said Williams. And guess what? You get to be the winner of the trivia question as well. It was Williams.
Okay.
Well, Paul Ricard has always been nice to me, even though I'm not a big fan of the track, so I'm happy with that, thank you.
Yeah, which means the other two of you, sorry.
We'll survive.
All right. Well, that's the end of that race. It was very entertaining from a variety of angles, and thanks very much to Alberto for doing the color commentary. I enjoyed it very much. I hope you did too.
Cheers, my pleasure.
All right. Coming up for this series, the Shell Oil's British Grand Prix, which will be on June 11th, so a little bit of space between when this one is and that. It's actually 2 weeks, I think. Round 9 of 16, and the race will start at 2000 CEST. There may be some other races in the offing that I don't know about, like LVT races, but in any case, that's the next one on the calendar as of now. So if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure this one will... Brands Hatch always throws up interesting results, so it should be a fun race. Any parting thoughts, Alberto?
Well, mostly that I think we got some teams that were a bit of a disappointment due to the radical setups in the case of the Brabham, and Jules Bouchard seems to have some dents in his armor now. And I think this bodes well for how the Ferrari team is developing towards the next part of the championship.
Yeah, and I think it also is going to make the championship more interesting from a broadcasting point of view. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan out as we go into the second half of our 1986 F1 series. So thank you again, Alberto, for your help in the booth today. So for Alberto Ibañez, Jonathan Asserclinth, and Juha Boss, this is Jason White saying so long from Le Castellet. We'll see you next time. Take care and be safe.